Gita is about life. My life, your life, life in general. Sri Krishna is addressing Arjuna. Apart from actions that pertain to yagya, all other actions become reasons for bondage. Don't get lost in the method. See what the primary motivation is. Sacrifice whatever it takes to really rise. And how does one rise? Upanishads take Vedic ritualism to a different meaning altogether. And the Upanishads say, I'm not very interested in what is happening there, because the Upanishads are not about doing, they are about seeing. And that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna here. Right action is not about following. Right action is one that comes from. We'll begin with a discussion on the 9th verse of chapter 3 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, some of you might have just read the Bhagavad Gita once, cursory glances, casual reading. Some of you might have taken it more seriously, and some of you might say that the Gita is very close to your heart. When we have a sizable audience, it will be a mix in terms of the previous engagement with the text. But irrespective of what your experience has been and how deeply you have been associated with the Gita or Vedanta or wisdom literature in general, the session does not presume any kind of preparation or qualification. Even if you haven't even once heard of the Gita, this discussion is still very much for you, right? So, just because the name is scriptural and the words might initially sound a bit heavy, do not be discouraged. The Gita is about life, my life, your life, life in general. So it is about who we are, the decisions we make, our hopes, our sufferings, our desires and deeds, right? So this is not a faraway text from some ancient place. This connects to our lived experience, this reality that we breathe every day. As people of this century, as young and modern individuals, right? So we won't be biased on either side. We won't say we know the Gita in advance. We won't say I am a scholar, or this is something that has been happening traditionally at my home, so I already know of it. Nor will we say that what do I have to do with the Gita? This is a different age. with different situations and different challenges, and I'm a youngster. I have other issues to think of. Neither of these things. We'll approach it openly, unbiased and neutral, and willing to engage, right? So the verse is peculiar and very interesting. Yagya is at the center of the verse, and we'll try to understand what that means. The verse says, and in the context of the Gita, Sri Krishna is addressing Arjuna, apart from actions that pertain to yagya, all other actions become reasons for bondage. All other actions become causes for bondage. The only exception is yagya. Whatever you are doing as yagya, that alone will not become bondage, might in fact be liberatory. So therefore, Arjun, learning from what I just said, perform the right action in detachment. That comes later. That seems to be the conclusion from the initial part of the verse. Conclusions can wait. We'll first of all try to understand what the verse is saying and in what way is the verse speaking to us here today. Students of technology in modern India, how is this verse speaking to us? And if it is not speaking to us, then it will become a part of a belief system, just a tradition, just an identity marker, and that won't do us much good. We'll miss out on the richness, the depth that the verse might potentially have to offer, right? So, yagya, what is it? We know the Vedic religion was of yagya, offering sacrifices. And it began with yagya as ritual, right? But then the Vedas themselves are a journey, a progression. And from the initial part where you have the Samhita, the mantra, the Vedas then progress to the philosophical part, represented by the Aranyaks and, most importantly, the Upanishads. And the Upanishads take Vedic ritualism to a different meaning altogether. Because the Upanishads are not about doing, they are about seeing. They are not about rituals. They are about rigor in understanding. So obviously these constitute one composite text. The Upanishads are very much part of the Vedas, and since they form the philosophical core or the very epitome, the summit of Vedas, therefore they are called Vedanta. Vedanta indicates the height, the end, the peak. Right. So the Upanishads are obviously not going to just directly contradict what comes in the earlier part. What they instead do is something very beautiful. They take terms and infuse them with newer and richer meanings. And why are we talking of Upanishads here? Because the Bhagavad Gita, though not really a part of the Shruti corpus, is considered a de facto Upanishad. In fact, it is sometimes in adulation referred to as the juice, the nectar of all Upanishads. You take all Upanishads and pour their wisdom into one, and that becomes the Bhagavad Gita. So it is said. Though technically Bhagavad Gita is not an Upanishad, yet it is considered one. So yagya. In the initial way of ritualistic Prakriti worship, yagya would simply mean pleasing the gods. Pleasing the gods. Right? And that's how the Vedas begin. So there is Agni, there is Marut, there is Surya, and then there is Indra and the later gods. And initially it is about singing their praise and making them offerings with the hope, the desire that gods, when pleased, will grant fulfillment of desire. So you go to Agni, and that's how the Rig Veda opens. You go to Agni and say, please destroy my enemies. Or you go to Varun and you say, there must be ample rain and greenery and waters. Right? And you offer the gods whatever you have in rituals called the yagya. And you say, this is what I am giving you now. Let our cows have plenty of milk. Let our families be safe and secure. Keep away diseases and make us happy. Right? So that is the initial meaning of the term, but just the initial meaning. The same terms were taken and, as we said, enlivened with much deeper meanings in the later part of the Vedas, which is Vedanta. What does Vedanta deal with? Very interesting. The whole process of knowing, Ved means knowing, the whole process of knowing begins with looking at Prakriti. That's how the Vedas begin. Looking at this. And why am I looking at this? All the initial parts are about desire fulfillment. Sakam Shruti, as we call. Sakam Shruti. Kam means desire. Sakam means with the view of fulfillment of desire. So initially, it is about looking at all this with the expectation that something here or something there can potentially result in my fulfillment, thereby giving me happiness. That's the primary motivation. I want to be happy, I want to be fulfilled. And since my senses show me nothing but this, therefore I approach all this requesting to be fulfilled. Sir, please, can you help me? Sir, please, can you grant my wish? Sir, please, can you keep me safe? I know you have great powers, and I sing your praise. That's how it starts. Don't get lost in the method. See what the primary motivation is. The primary motivation is freedom from incompleteness. There is a certain lack of fulfillment that the human being experiences, and to address it, that human being rushes towards the world, this world. And he says, if I have to speak to the world, I rather speak to the masters of this world. And those are the gods, the various Vedic gods. I'm speaking to them because I think by speaking to them, I can gain fulfillment. But as the journey continues, because the Vedas, they are an entire process running over at least 1000 years. As the journey progresses, something very interesting happens. The one who went towards the world to gain fulfillment starts seeing that what he wants is not really happening. That he has praised every single physical force possible, and yet fear still remains, discontentment still remains. And then the Vedic process takes some kind of a U-turn. It's a very interesting thing. Enter the Upanishads, and the Upanishads say, I'm not very interested in what is happening there. I want to look at myself. So the Upanishads then are not about dabbling in this or that, but just asking, who am I? I'm clearly seeing that nothing out there will succeed in fulfilling me. So can I get to the root of lack of fulfillment? Can I see what is it inside me that remains uneasy, afraid, dissatisfied all the time? That's Vedanta for you. Can I get within? Can I get within? And what do you find within? You have consciousness. What is consciousness? That which sees, that which experiences. That which experiences. Now, when you start observing that, it becomes interesting. Because this thing within is not one thing. It has levels, it has grades. And one does not know what its ultimate possibility is, because one sees that consciousness can be as murky as possible, or consciousness can have great clarity. So this thing within is a possibility. And the various levels of consciousness are directly related to the extent of dissatisfaction or sorrow that one experiences. The lower the consciousness within, the deeper is the sorrow one experiences. The Upanishads very eagerly engage themselves with this thing within. What is it within? Because they have now found some kind of a key. If freedom from suffering is the goal of the spiritual process, then suffering is related to the level of consciousness of the sufferer. Beautiful equation. If not just the spiritual process, but the entire process of life is about gaining freedom from suffering, because that's what we do anything for, right? Why do you go shopping? So that you can be less unhappy. Why do you want to have a job? Why do you do anything in life? So that sorrow can be reduced. If that is the purpose of not just our spiritual but also all our worldly endeavors, then the key is very useful. I want freedom from sorrow. And the extent of sorrow is inversely proportional to the level of consciousness within. Wow, nice. And now the term yagya attains a totally different inner meaning. Inner meaning. Now the meaning is, let the lower level of consciousness offer itself to the higher level. What was the initial meaning? Man offering something to gods. Man offering something to gods. That was the ritualistic meaning. And then we moved to philosophy. Not theology, but philosophy. Not belief, but inquiry. Not assumption, but observation. The moment we move to that, the term yagya becomes so rich, so wonderfully evocative. Now it means I am potentially many inside because I have options and choices. I can choose to be a clumsy fellow with no clarity, operating from a point of desire or greed or superstition. I can choose to operate from there, right? Or I can say, pause, I want to know. I won't move without understanding. And both these levels are possible to me. I have a choice. And I also know the lower the level of consciousness, the deeper are my bondages and sorrows. So now yagya means let the lower level be sacrificed in favor of the higher level. Let the lower level be sacrificed in favor of the higher level. Whatever it takes, whatever is the price to be paid, I'll do that. And no price is too big, because ultimately it's all for the sake of freedom from sorrow. If I say I don't want to pay the price and continue to remain in sorrow, that can't be a good deal. Do you get this? Do you get this? So now yagya becomes, I stay at a lower level because I think I have some stakes there. I think I have self-interest. There are comforts and conveniences and temptations. So I stay at this level. I stay in sorrow, I stay in submission. I accept bondages. I accept fear. Instead of standing tall, I accept to crawl. And yagya would mean no, none of that. Sacrifice your comforts and conveniences if that's what it takes to rise. That's the offering. Swaha. Sacrifice whatever it takes to really rise. And how does one rise? By giving up association with that which is useless, that which is toxic, which includes objects on the outside, things, people, relationships, and also includes objects on the inside, ideologies, beliefs, assumptions, unexamined hopes. This is what was bogging me down. This weight was what was not allowing consciousness to rise. Because the very nature of consciousness is to rise. What is it then that doesn't allow it to? Think of a balloon. Think of a balloon. It wants to rise to the skies, but it's being kept down by weights attached to it. So the process of ascension is the process of sacrificing the weights. Sacrificing the weights. Now, weights in practical life do not appear like dead weights because we are habituated to them. And habituation results in identification. We no more call them weights. We call them our life, our identities, sometimes our love. We say, this is what I deeply like. How do I give it up? Yagya is about seeing that your likes and dislikes are immaterial when it comes to liberation. When it comes to attaining to your highest possibility, you must be able to keep all these things aside. Doesn't matter if I'm habituated to disliking something. If it really aids the process of my liberation, I'll accept it. Equally, there is something I have been carrying in my mind as important or even sacred. But if I see that it is just dead weight, I'll push it aside. That's yagya, that's sacrifice. So it's not really, in the Vedantic sense, in the philosophical sense, about lighting a fire and burning wood. That's how it began. That's the ritualistic origin. But that's not the philosophical symbolism. Are you getting it? Philosophically, yagya goes way beyond the ritual involving certain actions. Getting this? If that is yagya, what is Sri Krishna saying here? He's saying, apart from yagya, all else that you do will result in bondage and therefore suffering. Are you getting this? So only that is worth doing which results in your liberation. Only that. Therefore, the center of your action must be your love for liberation, love for freedom, broadly put. Where do I act from? Where do I act from? Act from a center of freedom. And what if I'm not free? Then act from your love for freedom. If you find you are encaged, still You can have love if not freedom, right? Yes, you are engaged, but you still can have love for freedom if not freedom itself. Start from there. Start from there. That must be the center of all action. That must be the actor itself. When that is the actor, then action will be right. This is the very definition of right action, samyak karma. Right action is not about following social rules or moral commandments or established do's and don'ts. Right action is one that comes from the right state of the actor. When the actor is rightly positioned, whatever the action is, it's all right. You don't have to be too particular about the action itself. What you have to be cautious of is the state of the actor. The actor must be a lover of freedom. And if that's the point from where the action arises, that's yagya. I am prepared to let go of whatever I have gathered here on this plane so that I may rise to that plane. That's yagya. And that's the real meaning of sacrifice. It's not without reason that I find myself languishing here. There is a reason. And the reason is that I have developed stakes here. And those stakes, if unchallenged, will not let me rise my entire life. So I evaluate the stakes and I see that nothing is more valuable than freedom itself. And therefore, I sacrifice. And that's not even a sacrifice. Because when you say sacrifice, it hurts and scares a bit. You feel you are giving something up. No, you're not giving something up. You are actually gaining a lot. You are giving up nonsense for the sake of something immense. Is that sacrifice? Not really. Not really. That's yagya. Right? Something is required to be given up. And that which you are giving up is actually of very little value compared to what you gain. What you gain. Now, instead of that, if I stay at this level, we are talking of levels of consciousness here, right? If I stay at this level, a lowly level, and staying here, I say I'll operate from my center and act as per my desires and hopes and likes and dislikes, what am I likely to do? I'll just do more of what I have been already doing all my life. Because the center has been the same. Situations change, names change, appearances change. People don't really change. At their center, there remains a continuity of ignorance. So you will just repeat your old, unworthy decisions. You are here, right? And if you do not want to give up this plane, if you want to retain your old center, the old actor, you will simply be repeating what you have done throughout your life in this plane. And how is that a bad thing? Because what you have done till now has failed to give you contentment or clarity or joy or liberation. Instead, it has given you bondages. So doing more of it will only give you more bondages. How can that be a good deal? Doing more of what you have done so far will only give you more bondages, because so far, what is it that one has gathered in life? Just a lot of mental weight, not freedom really. One says, I have this responsibility without knowing why that responsibility is valid at all. One says, I have started believing in such a thing without knowing why any belief is needed at all. One says, I have reached this age, so I have to do a few things now. Why? Because that's the social custom, without questioning why any custom needs to be followed at all. That's what is called bondage. One gathers stuff without knowing why that stuff is needed, and then one is deeply afraid of losing that stuff. That's bondage. Right? And if you do more of it, you only get more of what you have already been receiving. And that's what Krishna is telling Arjun here. Arjun, at any level of consciousness, whatever you do will only result in more bondage. Only one thing is right and auspicious, which is standing here, I do something that will raise me above this point. Yes, I am standing here, but I'll still act in a way that raises me. I'm here, but my actions must not take me horizontal. They must take me vertically upwards. And there is great pleasure and a feeling of security in acting horizontally, because this is where our entire universe is. I'm here, these are my friends, this is my boss, this is my organization, these are my relatives, this is the set of my beliefs, this is my ideology, and all of that is at my own level. So one wants to play horizontal. This is my flat universe. I want to be here. Shri Krishna is saying, if you continue to remain here, if you continue to act here, you will only gather more bondage. So you need to act this way. What does that mean? I'm here. How do I go here? Am I not destined to live this way? Well, one can be here and still act in a way that will raise you upwards. Almost like an aircraft. There is nothing in the aircraft that really pushes it upwards. If you look at the jet engines, the stream is horizontal. And when the engines are turned on, the craft starts taxiing. And yet, there comes a point when it leaves the plane, when it leaves this horizontal dimension and takes off. You have to act with that kind of determination and configuration. Even though I am acting here, yet I do not want to stay here. I want to rise. And to rise, if I am needed to drop things, I will drop them. That's sacrifice. That's not even sacrifice, that's common sense. That's common sense. Just that the ego does not want to accept the obvious. The ego loves complications, complexities, and that which is obvious in one's face, the ego wants to refuse that. Do you see this? Remaining who we are, if we continue to act, we will only get more of what we have received so far in our life, in the entire journey of the past. Yagya is about challenging your own center. And how is that done? By examining your associations. I'm associated with this. I do not want to be any more associated with this because I see that this is one of the weights bogging me down. So what do? Swaha. Gone. Gone. So now the gods represent a higher level of consciousness. And the fellow offering the sacrifice represents the current level of consciousness. And this fellow is saying, let this be in the service of that level. I want to reach there. Now the gods no more represent forces of nature, forces of Prakriti. No, the gods are not representing that anymore. The gods are now representing your own potential divinity. Now the gods are no more outside of you. In Vedanta, all gods are inside of you. And even the final God, the ultimate truth, is your own possibility. Aham Brahmasmi. No God outside of you. Truth alone is God. And you are truth, just that you refuse to accept that. You are enchanted with something very small. So you are continuously rejecting the immensity of truth. Do you get the symbolism, please? There is this fellow sitting in front of the sacred ritualistic fire offering the sacrifice. Who is that person? That's you. And then there are the gods to whom the sacrifices are being offered. Who is that God? That too is you. The one making the sacrifice is who you are today. The one receiving the sacrifice is the one you must be tomorrow. For a higher tomorrow, for a better tomorrow, I am prepared to give up the needless today. That's yagya. And tomorrow is not necessarily in time, mind you. The process of ascension is not an evolutionary process that tomorrow you will be better or this thing. Just for the sake of explanation, I said tomorrow. If you are sincere in your seeing, in your realization, the dropping, the letting go, the neti happens right now, timelessly. It does not require a tomorrow. Seeing is freedom. Understanding is liberation. It does not necessarily require time. The moment you see, you are free. But that seeing, it has to be very honest. If it's just a biological, intellectual process, it will not liberate. You get this? Therefore, dropping attachment, perform rightful action. You would see why attachment is a problem when it comes to yagya. Because yagya would mean I sacrifice this. But I cannot sacrifice this if I am attached to this. So therefore, Kante, drop attachment. Else you will continue to carry this, and if you continue to carry this, you will remain on this plane. You will remain on this plane. What's the problem if I remain on this plane? There is no problem. Just that you would be discontented. Not that I have a problem, Arjun. It's about you. You won't be joyful. You would keep cringing within. You would find yourself afraid and ambitious, insecure and greedy. So it's about you. Not that I am asking you to obey my command. I am asking you to discover your own potential. Not my command, your potential. You can disregard my advice. But how will you disregard your own suffering? So it's not about some God commanding you from above. It's about your own potential calling you from within, not from outside, but from within. That's Vedanta. This is not some theistic commandment where some creator has sent down an instruction manual and said you have to live like this, otherwise you will be cursed. This is not that. This is the song of your own suffering. This is the poem of your own liberation. It doesn't have to do with anybody on the outside. It's not about being a good servant of an external Lord. It's about being sincere towards yourself. It's about being sensitive to your own suffering. Do you get this?
Good morning, sir. This is Ayush. I would like to question you. You just now said that Vedanta is the last part of the Vedas that that asks questions on inner self. I thought means I know that Ved Vyas has compiled the Vedas, and in the last part, he discussed about the Vedanta for the inner self. But after that, after all this all, he also written the Purans and the Bhagavad Purans and all. So don't we think that these Purans to be true rather than these Vedants?
The Puranic literature comes almost 1,000 years after the Upanishads. 1,000 years. And that's Smriti. Do we get the fundamental difference between Shruti and Smriti? Smriti is man-made stuff with the purpose of elaborating on Shruti, taking the Shruti to masses, while remaining steadfastly loyal to Shruti. You cannot compare Upanishad with Puran. There is no comparison at all. In fact, anything in the Smriti corpus is to be immediately rejected the moment it disagrees with Shruti. The moment a Puran disagrees with an Upanishad, the Puran is to be immediately rejected. Ved Vyas is not a person. Ved Vyas is a title. It's an honorific. We must have some historical sense also. Purans were being written even as late as, even as recently as the 15th or 16th centuries, which means still just 400-500 years back. That's how recent the Purans are. Obviously, the initial Purans were composed at around 3rd, 4th century after Christ. And when did the Pramukh Upanishads come? That was 200, 300 years before Buddha and Mahavir. That was 7th, 8th century BC. And the Purans, their process starts in the 3rd century of Christ era. So 300 plus 800. Minimum 1100 years of difference. It's not the same person who is composing both of them, first thing. Secondly, irrespective of who composed what, because all that is lost in antiquity, one thing is certain: Vedanta is Shruti. And all that comes after that, the Dharma Shastra, the Dharma Sutra, the Itihas Granth, the Puran, all that has to unquestioningly obey Vedanta. Right? Otherwise, India is a big country. Even today, if you write a book dealing with religion and it gets massively popular and commonly accepted, it can possibly be a part of the Smriti literature. And Smriti means that which human mind has written. Shruti means that which is a meditative revelation. These two are different dimensions. They are incomparable. No Purana is comparable to Vedanta, and that's not something I am saying. That's something the Smriti itself says. And not once but 10 times. I don't know from where has this come that Puran and Ved are often uttered in the same breath. Purans have stories, and those stories have to be understood in the light of Vedantic principles. And those stories are sometimes very beautiful, but their meaning will be known only if you first of all understand Vedanta. Otherwise, you will take a story and interpret it in any which way. And that's what is happening. And that's what has been happening over the last 1000 years. A lot of misinterpretation. And then you can use the Purans to support the caste system. You can use the Purans to support superstition, because you will misinterpret the Purans. And you will say all this is present there. The Purans were meant to take Vedantic wisdom to the masses. That was the purpose. But the moment you turn an insight into a popular story, there is a certain risk. What is the risk? The risk is of misinterpretation. Right? So, yes, the Purans are a fabulous, massive and rich body of literature, but be very careful. Interpret them rightly. And what is right interpretation? They must follow Tattvamasi. They must follow Prajnanam Brahma. They must follow Bodhoaham. The Purans have been enjoined to follow Vedanta. That's their responsibility.